Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group. We're located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about the belly button of the United States government. Gross! Oh, man. And look at that thing. It is gross. It's a big one. Some of us, kind of have stuff that looks resembles that. But we don't want our federal government to be bopping us in the face with that big old belly. And you can see what they've done to themselves. They have gotten a belly button piercing. You see that disgusting jewel hanging right out of that little hole in his stomach. It's the Twitter belly button ring. Well, that's what we're going to get into today. Twitter Files 11 is the subject of the show. Matt Taibbi dropped a new one, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to go through 30 plus different tweets in detail. He spent a lot of time on this, assembling it, so I'd encourage you to go follow him at Matt Taibbi on Twitter and, of course, on his Substack, which you can find many of those links down in the description below. We've got one segment today, and so we're going to get right into it right after I remind you about our supporters of the show. Of course, our community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We do member-only streams. We're going to head on over there after the show for an after party. Also, check out our friends over at 4patriots.com. Survival food, survival gear, 10% off if you use code Robert. And of course, our law firm, the R&R Law Group. We're located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope. And so let's just get right into it. One segment today, we're spending it all on the Twitter files. The belly button of the federal government, the FBI. You just poke them right there and the whole government squirms. It's the centerpiece, center mass, right there in the middle of that big whopper. You see it there, pierced with the Twitter dangle hanging out of his gut. Let's go directly to the Twitter files. You see here, Matt Taibbi starts us off. This was posted January 3rd, 1:30 p.m. He tells us, the Twitter files, the subject of this thread, how Twitter let the intelligence community in. Open the door for them. They walked right in. We rewind the clock. It starts back to a date in August 2017. At that time, Facebook decided to suspend 300 accounts with, quote, suspected Russian origin. Yeah. And that, of course, is after the 2016 election. So Trump is already in office. They're all doing the retrospective. They're all saying, oh my gosh, how the heck did this happen? We let this get out of control. And so they started to create and concoct all of their election integrity groups. They were all scrambling to make sure this never happens again. At that time, though, Twitter wasn't worried, says Matt. Its leaders were sure that they didn't have a Russia problem. They're like, this is ridiculous. What are you talking about, Russia problem, weirdos? Matt says, there's a quote from some emails. It says, we did not see a big correlation. There were no larger patterns. This whole Russian thing is just a big joke. Twitter says, Facebook may take actions on hundreds of accounts. Okay, that's fine. We may take action on, like, I don't know, give or take 25. Nobody cares. Here are the emails. First one says, with Facebook on this effort, we can do that. We'll just want to be careful about expectations, they're talking. They say Facebook may take actions on hundreds of accounts, and we may take action on give or take 25. We can add Yoel. You remember Yoel Roth for more detail. Yoel Roth was the head of trust and safety until we learned that he was not very trustworthy or safe. The emails continued. You see, this one came out on September 6, 2017. Let's see what Colin Crowell says. He, of course, is the vice president of global public policy and philanthropy with Twitter Incorporated. He's over on Twitter at the following link. So this email came out. It is regarding Russia, inbound from FBGC. What I suspect that is probably Facebook General Counsel from their lawyer. It is to so-and-so, and it is copied to 10 more people. So Colin Crowell, he writes, he's the vice president of Twitter. He says, all right, everybody. Now that the story is out, it seems like the focus is on the purchasing of $100,000 of Facebook ads by these Russian accounts. Remember that whole story? Oh, we got hacked by Russia. We're all going to die. Trump, Trump, Trump. It started the entire Russia collusion hoax that dogged his presidency for the first 2+ years. So Colin writes to everybody. He says, understanding that we did not see here at Twitter a big correlation on our platform that Facebook found on theirs, we have run the analysis of whether the accounts we did have purchased, have we run the analysis, he's asking, of whether the accounts we did have purchased Twitter promoted products. In other words, did the Russians do the same thing on Twitter? They're alleging that they did that on Facebook. They bought $100,000 of Facebook ads. Did they also buy Twitter ads? Have we analyzed that? Anybody know? And here's another email. It says Vijaya. Of course, Vijaya Gotti was the lawyer there at Twitter, also involved in censoring many Americans, in my humble opinion. It says, hi, we're in contact with Facebook, and we did get this list. Yes, we are in contact. We did get this list. I was on the initial call with Facebook along with so-and-so and so-and-so from my team. I'll let so-and-so summarize the findings. Man, we got some bad cell phone grammar or something here. But the high level is that we see multi-account violations, but no larger patterns or items per our terms of service. They're not seeing anything. Right. And we remember Russia, 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 Russia all day long. Taibbi continues. There are emails that say, keep the focus on Facebook. Twitter was so sure that they had no Russia problem that executives agreed that the best public relations strategy, the best way to paper over all of this in the media, was to say nothing on the record. Just don't talk about it. All right. Just quietly hurl the reporters over at Facebook. And I know you're asking us a bunch of questions, but do you know what Mark Zuckerberg is up to over there? Blame him. He's got a much bigger platform than we do anyways. So go talk to him. Here are some of the emails. You see it is titled, it says, per a discussion with blank. Don't see what that is. It says, at Policycoms does not recommend issuing an on-the-record statement on this matter for the following reasons. If the reporters are coming crawling, you got to shoo them out of here. Says 1, we can be more candid, pushing the book back to Facebook on background. All right. So just tell them it's Facebook's problem. They bought Facebook ads. They didn't buy Twitter ads. Go talk to them. And number 2, issuing a statement that brings us closer to Facebook, their vulnerabilities on this issue, and the follow-up stories on Russia. They don't want to be a part of it. Can we get out of the blast zone is what they're asking. They also say that we're working on a reactive comm strategy. Our initial sense is that nothing, or at most a sentence on the record, so just kind of keep it tight so that we can keep the focus on Facebook. Primary work will be off the record, working as fast as we can to give short notice, but we'll try to share material as soon as possible. Doesn't sound like there's much of a Russian problem at all. We see another email now. This one comes out from Public Policy Vice President. His name is Colin Crowell. He sent this one September 6, 2017, 10:01 p.m. Very long email from the Vice President of Philanthropy and other things. This one goes over to Sean, to Carlos, and 2 other people. It's about Russian election meddling. Wow. Now, this one's privileged and confidential, so we're really peering inside now. Colin says, hello all. For your information that I'm going to schedule time, this group, to discuss the Russian election meddling and the implications for Twitter. Said that the Facebook announcement today is going to draw us into conversations with Congress on this, and we need to duly assess what we know and be responsive to inquiries from Capitol Hill. He writes, we are due to see the Democratic staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee, people like Mark Warner, at the end of September. This will be a non-public private meeting. Also, Representative Pencilneck Adam Schiff from California, who is on the House Intel Committee, has put out a statement this evening, pasted below. And he's indicating that he's looking for answers from other platforms, right? This is the start of the pound the table from the Democrats. Ma Russia, ma Russia, ma Russia. Important context. Twitter is not the focus of the inquiry into Russian election meddling right now. Spotlight's on Facebook because Facebook has better targeting ability than we have for campaign-related advertising. And because of the Trump campaign, they spent massively on Facebook during the election compared to what they spent with us. And they blamed Facebook for actually Trump getting elected, right? I mean, they were really upset with him, and they really twisted the nuts over there to stop the spread of Trump. The email continues. They say, for congressional investigators, the core issue here isn't that the Russians tried to use social media to influence the election. They don't care about that. Rather, how did they obtain relevant information for their targeting strategy, the DNC hack? And was there any direct or indirect coordination with the Trump campaign? Right? You see here, right, they don't care. They don't give a crap about Russians and influencing the election. They want to know how Trump did it. How'd they get access in the DNC hack? What was their targeting strategy? Was there actual coordination with the Trump campaign? I mean, they want to just go make it hurt, make the Facebook and tech companies squirm, because how dare they allow their platforms to be utilized openly and freely? And guess what? That didn't happen in 2020. In fact, they were labeling and censoring everybody. It's like them going around to people's, if you put a yard sign out in your front yard, you say, I support this candidate. It's like somebody coming and ripping out your digital yard sign. Every time you post something, it's posting a yard sign. They're allowed to post yard signs all they want. They can post 1 million of them. They're free, in fact. And they'll amplify them. They'll turn them into billboards. They'll turn them into spotlights. But in this case, if you are a Trump supporter, then you don't get any yard signs at all. They rip them right out. So you can see here, well, not even that concerned. For the congressional investigators, the core issue isn't that Russians used the social media, but rather other things like, why did Trump win? How dare you? Continuing on, Taibbi writes, he says that in September 2017, after a cursory review, Twitter informed the Senate that they suspended 22 possible Russian accounts, also 179 others with possible links to those accounts, amid a larger set of roughly 2,700 suspects manually examined. Not a lot at all. What percentage is that? Basically none. Not a lot there. He continues, he says, receiving these meager results, they were furious. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, a ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, held an immediate press conference to denounce Twitter's report as frankly inadequate on every level. Inadequate because he didn't like it, right? He didn't like the outcome of this. The Twitter briefing to U.S. congressional investigators was disappointing, says Mark Warner. Senator blasts Twitter. It was inadequate on every level. The report didn't give the conclusion that he wanted, man. He had an idea on what the ending should be, and he didn't like the ending. So it is now time for Congress to spring into action. Now, the irony is, mused Crowell, was that the day after Warner's presser, after receiving an e-circular from Warner's re-election campaign asking for $5 or whatever you can spare, LOL, replied General Counsel Sean. Let's take a look at this email. It is from Sean, from Mark Warner for Senate to somebody at Twitter. This is September 29th. So they sent this to Twitter from Mark Warner. The campaign message says, Colin, we're only a short of time off Saturday's crucial end of quarter fundraising, and honestly, we're behind. That's because Mark has been focused on the fight to save healthcare and getting tough on Trump. So right now we need to turn this around. Can you chip in $5 or whatever you can? This was after Mark blasts Twitter. They send a fundraising email over to Twitter. So he forwards it over to Colin. He says, LOL. See that down there? LOL. Yeah, right. Ridiculous. So they're upset about that. They're sort of, why are they asking us for money if they're going to take our company out? So Taibbi continues. He says, after meeting with congressional leaders, Twitter was palling around, of course, Crowell wrote, Colin, this is Colin down here, he sends another email. September 29th, 2017 at 8:23 a.m. This one goes directly to this guy you're all familiar with, Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter. who, for some reason, has escaped a lot of blame in any of this, even though he was the CEO, for whatever reason. He is notified. Colin says to Jack, update on Russian election interference. Says, hey, Jack, here's a little bit more background on what's going on here with your company. He says, yes. So he's responding to something. He's giving bullet points. Jack probably sent an email. Hey, what is up with this and this and this and this? He's responding. All right, Jack Dorsey, here's a little bit more background. He says, yes, only Senator Warner, the ranking Democrat, commented, meaning that Jack's probably asking how many senators are angry. How many of them are jumping out of their skin? Is it like all of them or is it like a one of them? Only Senator Warner commented, he says. The Intel Committee Chairman, Burr, declined to comment and no other senators said anything. So Jack Dorsey's like, whew, all right, just one psycho. So Warner has been the most vocal about the need for public hearings with social media companies, and he took Facebook to task a couple of weeks ago, leading them to ultimately agree to disclose the ads that they found associated with the alleged Russian interference. So Warner is just pounding on the table, right? He's kicking in the door at Facebook, saying, give me everything that I want that implicates Trump Russia so that I can start my Russia collusion scam. And if you don't, we're going to haul you in front of Congress. So they say, okay, fine. You have oversight. You're a congressperson after all. And they gave him everything. So now Jack is like asking the other question is, well, right, you can sort of see what the questions he's asking. How many senators are pissed at me? Okay, just one. Great. Okay, are they also mad at the other people too? Are they angry at the other companies too? Like, are the other kids in trouble too? He says, yes, they are. Okay, well, what are they doing? What's their excuse? Well, they gave him the ads. I mean, they gave up the goods. He's like, oh, crap. All right. So he says, dynamic, during our 2-hour closed-door meeting with the Senate staff investigators, it was more cordial, less contentious than other senators' comments. So the senators are just talking a big game in public, but they're nice behind closed doors. Says, we got some tough questions, but we were working in collaboration and collaborative spirit, and we pledged to circle back with more information based on their queries. Now, on the House side, says Colin, he's telling Jack, he says, well, the Intel Committee ranking Democrat, Adam Shifty, was the only one who commented because, of course, his statement was more balanced, thanking us for cooperation, looking forward to ongoing work together. But he also said that we had more to investigate to see what happened in 2016. And he said, quote, that you have significant forensic work to do to understand the depth and the breadth of Russian activity during the campaign. So go find what I want you to find, in other words. He says, we knew going in what our biggest vulnerability was that our teams are addressing and solving the malicious bot and misinformation problems of 2017 and beyond. But Warner and the Intel committees are singularly focused on what happened in 2016. They don't care about bots. They care about Trump. And we simply don't have a lot of data or conclusions to share with them on that front currently. Warner, this is going to Jack Dorsey, the CEO. Warner has political incentive to keep this issue at the top of the news. Yeah, he does. Of course, he's a congressperson. Maintain pressure on us and the rest of the industry to keep producing material for them. See that there? Keep producing material for them. Give them what they need to go and implicate Trump and generate interest for the November 1st hearing that is planned, right? So he's going to keep pounding the table and beating the drum on this. Democrats are also taking cues from Hillary Clinton, of course, who in her What Happened book tour is purportedly talking about the role of Russian propaganda and dirty tricks that were pushed through social media and her demise. Wow, it sounds like they're all spreading a bunch of misinformation and propaganda. She has specifically called out Facebook and other social media for not doing enough to address state-sponsored mischief. And in this summary to Jack, explaining all their liabilities, essentially, he says, we're also getting hurt by third-party academics and researchers. They tap into our API to pull together flawed reports, painting the bot Russian troll problem as a significant presence on Twitter. It's not even true. They also claim to monitor these Russian networks on Twitter and then report their activities. It was evident in the room with staff investigators that these researchers had already briefed the committees, and they already asserted Twitter is a major problem. True or not doesn't matter. These studies are also cited in recent media stories. All right, so they've got the academics, they've got the media, they've got all of the Congress people banging the table on this. They've got Hillary Clinton. They've got a bunch of very angry Democrats who lost to Donald Trump. And so they're concocting their narrative, right? It's all right here. There's not a lot of information that the Russians did anything really consequential, but they don't care about that. It's just pretextual to get in there and go after Donald. Now, Crowell added, this is Colin writing, he said that Dems were taking cues from Hillary. Here's a story from the Mercury News. This one says Hillary Clinton accuses Facebook, Twitter, and Google of enabling Russian agents. What? Russian agents. Because she lost. And was there, I mean, that's like if Trump did that, right? Like if Trump came out and said that, there'd be people calling him dangerous, irresponsible, all of that stuff. How dare you? They enabled our counterparts, right? So taking cues from Hillary Clinton and her book, not a surprise. Taibbi continues in 11. He tells us, there was growing anxiety at Twitter. Everybody's getting a little bit antsy. Nobody wants Congress breathing down your neck. And Twitter formed a, quote, Russia task force to proactively self-investigate. That's what a lot of these big bureaucracies do. Well, let's just form a committee and see what the committee finds, and then we don't have to do anything. The committee can do all the work, and then we'll just tell the committee to give the report over to them. See, will that solve it? Sounds like a good plan. Everybody in favor? Aye. All right, great. October 2nd, 2017. This email goes out to team. It is from Carlos. He's talking about the Russia task group. It's right about 12:30, just after lunch. Carlos says, team, thanks for being drafted to the Russia task force. They're all going, oh, gosh. He's all enthusiastic. He sounds like a great leader, good manager. Team, thanks for being drafted. All right. For the next month, this team will be focused on conducting a more fulsome retro of the 2016 election. Great. They didn't like our first book report, so we got to get another one. This time, we need more Russia in it. Number 2, preparing open congressional hearings at the end of the month. We're in big trouble. Principal called us. And number 3, telling Twitter's story publicly, including robust outreach to outside researchers, reporters, and members of Congress. We have to go shape the conversation. And 4, evaluating whether policy changes are needed. Now, up until this point, really the answer is no, right? Because they haven't seen Russia as a big problem. He says, I'll reach out to other teams, set up initial meetings on the next couple of days. In the meantime, I'm sharing access to a working folder that includes some of the big questions that we're trying to answer, like, why did Putin do this? As well as a full team roster. Thank you very much, your friend Carlos. That's from Carlos. So this task force gets going. Now, it started mainly with data shared from their friends over at Facebook, centered around accounts that were supposedly tied to Russia's Internet Research Agency. But the search for Russian perfidy was a dud. This is the scope of the project. The Russian task force prepares for us a very convenient TLDR. Too long, didn't read. We work for Twitter. We've got other things to do, like censor people making election jokes. He says, we have an initial list of suspicious advertising content here. A lot of benign content. Need to further investigate before we can draw a conclusion. There's an executive status update as well. TLDR on this one. Models built that produce lists of tweets found 8,000 around election content and a further 700 contents with a potential list of accounts with Russian links. Deeper analysis required before determining if connection between lists and Russia. Group will do manual reviews with legals and comms around the next phase. to align on the approach and narrow down the list to confirm connections and quantified. Now, obviously, if you've been here for the prior Twitter files, and we've covered all of them, we've known that they've done many of these deep dives, right? They've done many of these analyses, and they found that there is nothing, there's no connections, right? They were trying to come up with IP connections and all sorts of stuff, but they had a lot of difficulty doing so. In 13, Matt tells us there's another email. It says, we have found suspicious accounts which demonstrate our investigation strategy is working. We're onto them. However, we see no evidence of a coordinated approach. All of the accounts found seem to be lone wolf type activity, different timing, a different spend, different targeting, less than $10,000 in ad spend. And so, yeah, manual review has begun with 6 accounts identified with some signal to Russia, mostly login driven. Having been identified with election activity, 2 of 6 are retweet accounts already identified. Deeper analysis required, but at first pass, it would suggest that these are low spend, isolated actors rather than anything significant. Not even significant. Please do not share beyond this group. This is a link to the top level summary. So he's like, no, we didn't find anything. All right. Obviously, because it's ridiculous. And what they did find, right, is not consequential. So they go, we got some things, I guess, from minor here and there, not a big deal. You guys whacked out about, take it easy. But Schiff wants answers on this. Warner wants answers on this. Another one, October 18th, they're still digging and digging and digging. The first round of the Russia investigation was shared with Legal and Comms yesterday. The results suggest 15 high-risk accounts, 3 of which ultimately have connections with Russia. Wow, pretty low. Although 2 are RT, which is Russian news, right? Which is like openly Russian news. Russia Times or something. I don't know what it is, but it's known to be Russian. So, okay, everybody knows that. Feedback was positive around methodology and the approach. Key next steps are to document in detail the methodology along with agreeing on the specific data to share with legal and outside counsel. Almost nothing. So maybe 1 account with connections with Russia. 15 high risk, don't know where those came from. 2 of those we know. So there's like 1 maybe bad account out of this whole stinking investigation. Tremendous job, guys. Here's another update. They built a new version of the model that is lower precision but higher recall, which allows them to catch more items. So you see, the first part of this was they didn't like the answer. Okay, this is the wrong answer. When they take this back to Mark Warner and they shove this back over to Adam Schiff, Watermelon Head, they are going to be mad at them. They're going to say, what did we tell you? You came to us at our stupid meeting with you people, and you said this wasn't a big deal. We told you go make it one. And you're coming back again now with 1 account? Wrong answer. So they tell the programmers over there, why don't you fiddle with the knobs? Can you fiddle with the knobs back there? Jack Dorsey's like, just go bang it on the side, maybe adjust the thing. So they did that. They built a new model, and it's lower precision. So it's going to get a bunch of, additional non-violations, lower precision, but higher recall, which will allow it to catch more items. Perfect. That's what they want. They want more accounts. They want more names. They need higher numbers. Pump those numbers up, baby. Says we aren't seeing substantially more suspicious accounts. There aren't any. We expect to find around 20 with a small amount of spend. That's it. So it goes from 1 to 20 as they continue on in their investigation. Now, October 23rd, they're still updating this plan. October 23rd, day 14. We're on a crusade to find the Russians all day on Twitter. I haven't slept in 6 hours and eaten in 3. I'm working at Twitter. Here's my story. TLDR, finished with the investigation. We have a draft of 2 plans, which we'll review at 11 a.m. To many a decision about the path forward. It says working to finalize a blog post for the Plan B launch. The optimal launch window would be between Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday. And the executive status update is here. It says completed 2,500, so 2,500 full manual account reviews, We think this is exhaustive analysis. Okay, we've looked at everything. And now out of this, all right, out of 2,500, we've identified 32 suspicious accounts, and only 17 of those accounts are connected with Russia. And only 2 of those accounts have a significant spend, one of which is Russia Today, and the remaining are less than $10,000 in spend. What an absolute stinking joke this is. Can you believe this? Out of the 32 suspicious, only 17 of those connected to Russia. Only 2 of those have significant spend, one of which is an official news entity there. And the remaining are less than $2,000, less than $10,000 in spend. So 17, and even if you said if they're all 10,000, 17, only 2 of which have a significant spend, one of which is Russia Today. Wow. Basically no money, okay? Less than $200,000, probably less than $150,000 spent. Probably less than that. I'd be surprised, if it's even over $100,000. It could be less than $100,000 from those accounts. Maybe you have one big one that's like, 9,000, and the others are like, $500. It's people just, poking around with some money. What a total joke. All of that. They're on day 14 of this, man. They're waking up. They're having to splash water in their face. Like, man, another day of this. Get up. We can do it. We can do it. It's only 4 hours of work. We can make it. So they finally finish up, and this is their result. Wow. Okay, let's see. Hopefully now that puts this whole thing to bed, right? They give these results over to Adam Schiff and to Congress, and they just say, wow, I guess that's the end of the story. There's nothing to investigate. Looks like we were wrong in our conclusion. Thanks for the work, and we'll go back to the drawing board. So we continue. Matt says, Twitter's search found only 2 significant accounts, one of which is Russia Today, as we talked about. And that was based on the same data that later inspired panic headlines, like Russian influenced reached 126 million through Facebook alone. All right. So if the Russians were really conducting a social media operation to bring Trump into the office, wouldn't they be on Twitter as well as Facebook, on all of them, right? On YouTube and all of them? They just went to Facebook and they did it. And what a stupid story this is. You reached 120 million through Facebook. So they're probably looking at their total impressions. Just because something hit an impression or could possibly reach those people doesn't mean that it did. What a bunch of weirdos. So this article came out. Russian influence reached 126 million through Facebook alone. Well, what about on Twitter? Evidently not that much, but that was the big scare. The failure of the Russia task force, though, to produce that material that the government demanded they bring to him worsened the company's PR crisis. They're like, oh man, there's a dogpile going on and we need to be a part of it. We have to go after Trump. Everybody's going after Trump, but they can't find any evidence. In the weeks after, of course, Warner gave a press conference, and so time goes by. A torrent of stories, says Matt Taibbi, sourced to the Intel committee, poured into the news, right? Adam Schiff and all of those people on the committee start leaking stories. An example being Politico's October 13th story. Twitter deleted data potentially crucial to Russia's probes. So Adam Schiff's on the phone now. He's like, all right, perfect. We're going to make this hurt. Well, the Russians, we have probably half the country who's very upset at the Russians because of all the allegations about the Russians, right? It's been in the media. And he says, well, let's just blame Twitter for the Russians, and we'll turn the attention of all of the angry Democrats who lost, who are still hyperventilating. We're just going to turn their focus right over on Twitter. So they start leaking these stories, and this was one of the headlines from Politico. Twitter deleted data potentially crucial to Russia probes. Jack Dorsey's sitting there. He's going, what? We did? Who did that? It's a meltdown. Somebody told Politico, this person is a Johns Hopkins professor, and he's an Intel committee, quote, expert. So he's probably going to be a moron. Let's check. He says, were Twitter a contractor for the FSB, which is the Russian intelligence agency? Were Twitter a contractor for the FSB, he said, the Russian intelligence agency involved in the 2016 campaign to meddle in the election? Reed said, they could not have built a more effective disinformation platform. Wow. and he's an election expert. So Twitter must be just quivering in their boots over there. Now, Congress is also upset, obviously. They are going to eliminate Trump. They can't believe this happened. This was like against everybody's plan. Mitch McConnell's hyperventilating. Kevin McCarthy's throwing up. Everybody's very sick. As Congress threatened costly legislation and Twitter began to become subject to more bad press fueled by the committees, the company changed its tune about the smallness of the Russia problem. So this is what we're talking about. Get ready for the whiplash. On one side, they're saying, no. It's only basically like 10 accounts, probably $100,000, maybe $150,000. Who knows? Not much, not even a big deal. We spent 14 days on this. It was like the worst day ever. And we found nothing. But Congress starts poking around. How dare you help Russia and elect Trump? They changed their tune. So they're getting jerked the other direction. So we're all going to have whiplash here. So this is an email that comes out from the same dude, Colin Crowell. He's been working on this case for a little bit. September 23rd, 10:39 a.m. Email, Colin, to Sean and Carlos, the man who started the Russia task force. He says, FYI, we've got a Washington Post article here regarding a political ad disclosure legislation. There's a new article that came out. And you see the headline, copy and pasted down here. It says Facebook, Google, and Twitter, they face proposed bill targeting shadowy political ads because all the Democrats are screaming from the rooftops about this. And Republicans are just silent as usual. So Democratic lawmakers back then are pushing for new legislation that would require greater disclosure of political ads that run on internet platforms, despite a pledge by Zuckerberg that the company will voluntarily pull back on political advertising about social media on the social media network. Okay, so it's a full assault on all of these guys. Everybody's so mad. Trump exploited Facebook. How dare they work with him? So Zuckerberg, I'm sorry. I'll behave. I won't let him do this again. And Zuckerberg didn't, right? Zuckerberg started the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, whatever that's, the hyphens were, that donated tons of money in all the different states all over the place in 2020, right? So he got actively involved in making sure it didn't happen again and participated in the election, not only by voting for himself, but, by enabling electoral processes to be adjusted in many, many places across this country. So now he's getting the backhand from Congress. They're saying, oh, you're in big trouble, buddy boy. We gave you a leash. We gave you a little bit and you just kept going. Colin says, hey, guys. He says, oh, gosh, man, I'm just passing this along for awareness. The write-up here is from the Washington Post today on potential legislation. Great. Or new FEC regulations or something that may affect our political advertising, which is a lot of money here. So it's a big problem for us. Says that this echoes the comments that I heard in our Senate Intel prep, our Q&A doc, and our need to show a willingness to make some moves here ourselves. You see this? You see this? Congress is threatening them, so they're making some moves because Congress doesn't like the answers that they got in their book report. We will engage as necessary on this in D.C., right? This is their lobbyists, basically, as proposals are developed, and any new FEC regs or legislation will likely take some time to effectuate. But I wanted you guys to have the context of how Facebook's recent announcements are ginning things up here in town. He's in, Washington, D.C., he's at Capitol Hill. So he's saying they are really rattling the cage here, guys. We are they're shaking the tree. We better do something about this. They want answers. They want something. Otherwise, they're going to literally legislate us probably out of existence, right? Our political advertising will evaporate. He writes that right there. It may affect our political advertising. Big chunk of money is not going to be coming in if they continue this. So then we fast forward now. Couple weeks after the first briefing back in Washington, Twitter leaders were told by Senate staff that Senator Warner, quote, Senator Warner feels like the tech industry was in denial for months with their wrong answers. Adding that an Intel staffer says a big interest in political article about the deleted accounts. A couple other messages came out on the Emails. This looks like maybe a text message or a Slack message. Looks like a text message, actually. Let's see. Message says, friendly meeting with the COS. Said that Senator Warner is most focused on finding answers. Of course he is. And doesn't have anything against the tech industry generally or Twitter in particular. No, it's just Trump. Says that Warner feels like the tech industry was in denial for months and now feels like they understand the seriousness of what happened last year. They got their talking to. We need you to manufacture some evidence that Trump is illegal. Well, we don't have any. Well, we need it, though. Okay, well, we'll look for it. You better look hard. They show them what they found. We don't have anything, as we've told you. Perfect. Well, what we're going to do then is we're going to eliminate your company. So do you want to look again? Or would you like us to eliminate your company? We'd like to look again. So we'll go ahead and do that. I forgot. We didn't check that one hard drive. Yeah, that hard drive we forgot to plug in. The servers. Oh, the servers in the other closet. Oh, man. Yeah. All right. So we'll go back and plug those in. Yeah. Tell Senator Warner we'll have a new book report for him. We appreciate his patience. So we see this here. Twitter, in another email, shares the following. I outlined our work streams and they seemed content and they looked forward to having us come and preview our testimony at the end of next week with the Intel staff. It says we also pledged to work with them on their desire to legislate in the area of political ads. They indicated the general model is so-and-so. Desire to legislate. We also pledged to work with them on the desire to legislate in the area of political ads. So another email comes out. This is the policy director. Of course, this is Carlos, and Carlos is leading the team. He sent the team email prior. This one is in October 18th, 2017. Subject of this email is ads legislation from Carlos to somebody redacted. It says all. Oh, there's no team here. This one's all instead of team. A little bit more serious here. All. Knowing that our ads policy and product changes are an effort to anticipate congressional oversight, because the heavy boot of Congress is coming down on their neck, I wanted to share some relevant highlights of the legislation that Senators Warner, Klobuchar, and McCain, Arizona, will be introducing tomorrow. So now Congress is coming in hot. We got Warner, Klobuchar, McCain. This one is called the Honest Act. And this extends to paid digital advertisements, the FEC requirements that apply to broadcast, radio, and print ads. And ads, this ad, not like the advertisement, but this Honest Act would add this item. It would say that political matters of public importance, including national legislative areas of public importance, it would add that to the list of issues for which the FEC would require enhanced political disclosure, in addition to ads that mention candidates directly. So the FEC would then be able to sort of regulate all of that, right? It's more compliance things. It says political matters of public importance. Okay. Including national legislative issues of public importance to the list of issues where you'd have to report on. It's basically everything, right? So if you wanted to run a political ad about anything that's political, right, you can make an argument is of public importance. So it's just more regulation. They just want to regulate more speech. Of course, this was brought by Klobuchar, McCain, and Warner. Not a surprise. And of course, Twitter would fall into that, right? This would be probably a new tax, a new bureaucracy, a new agency. All digital ads would have to get approval, all these new, compliance, regulatory things. And it would give them another gateway to sort of siphon off any threats to power. Just say, oh, no, the FEC, federal elections, they say this, you can't say that, you can't do this anymore. So that they can shut you up. 26, Taibbi carries on. Now, even as Twitter is bracing for impact from the federal government, and they are prepared to change its ads policy, and they're also going to remove RT, and they're also going to remove Sputnik just to placate Washington, right? Because the bureaucratic censor losers in DC, that's all they care about. They just want to shut people up and remove them off the field. And they need answers. Now, in this case, this wasn't enough. Of course, removing RT, removing Sputnik, it doesn't placate Washington. They don't care about those entities. They don't care about Russia, except now they do. To use them as a justification for unlimited, never-ending spending on a perpetual war. So they always can bring them up as this convenient scapegoat for anything over the last, I don't know how many years now. It's going to be a decade soon. Change its ads policy. I mean, modern digital version of this. Russia's been, the enemy forever. But now they're interfering, even when they're not interfering, according to Twitter's own tests. Ridiculous. All right, so Twitter says, fine, okay, look, we'll censor them for you because you people just won't shut up and leave us alone. So then they remove these two platforms, and Congress says, not enough. We don't care about them. We care about Trump. Congress turned up the heat even more, and apparently they leaked the larger base list of 2,700 accounts. So they leaked this out, apparently. Wow. And this is all in writing. Okay, so Congress is punishing them now. These people are so rotten to the core, it's unbelievable, right? They're going to do whatever they can to get their way. And what recourse is there? What are you going to do? What are these poor guys going to do? What is Okay, let's read this. From Carlos to Colin Crowell. This is on November 22nd, 2017 at 3 o'clock Eastern. This is regarding the Wall Street Journal inquiry and a Twitter disclosure of Russian accounts. Carlos says, we'll do on House Intel. So whatever that was for, right? I'll do that. He got instruction from Colin. So Colin sent him a letter, copied Sean, copied Yoel, copied Laura Culbertson. So, okay, they're meeting in good faith with the government. Okay, Carlos is meeting. We'll do on the House Intel. Perfect. Got the instruction. He says the following right here beneath that. He says, the committees appear to have leaked the account names based on reporting of experts combing through the list and revealing new info, like on Brexit. Okay, so the rotten Congress people, they appear to have leaked the account names. They dropped the whole thing. They're meeting with them in good faith, and they're unhappy with this 2,700 list. Now, the 2,700 names we know are all mostly nonsense, right? They whittled all of this down, and it's like 17 accounts, all but 3 of them are less than $10,000 a day, or $10,000 in total spent. But they want the bigger number. They want that big, heavy-hitting whopper list. And so they told them about that list. They said, well, here's everything we looked at, but you really only should worry about these. They said, no. You don't understand. This is politics. So we want to release the whole 2,700 names to make it look like it's a massive conspiracy. It's this unbridled cause that nobody can maintain and control. And Twitter is now in on it, man. They're part of this conspiracy and cover-up. Taibbi says, reporters from all over started to call Twitter about Russia leaks because they're going, wow, that's a lot of accounts. BuzzFeed, working with the University of Sheffield, claimed to find, quote, a new network, quote, on Twitter that had, quote, close connections to Russia-linked bot accounts. Wow. Here's an email that came in Tuesday, November 21st, 2017, 2:53 p.m. from Nick Pickles. Nick writes, hi, team. We've had the below request from BuzzFeed in the UK. Can we run an analysis of the accounts ASAP, please? Thanks, Nick. And the response is, of course, well, we've been working with some researchers at the University of Sheffield to look at some of the tweets from a list of accounts submitted by Twitter to the U.S. Congress in connection with the Russian electoral interference probe. Oh, wow, that's weird. So that sounds like this person, this researcher, so-called, at the University of Sheffield, got a very fat Excel spreadsheet file from somebody. Where did it come from? Don't know. But evidently, it was Congress. They're the only people who had it. They got it from the meetings when they sat down with Twitter, and they were trying to work with them, right? We'll work with you on legislation. Okay, you want to legislate our political ads? Okay, we'll work with you, whatever you want to do. You are Congress after all, right? Please don't evaporate our company. I don't think people understand like the heft of the government coming into your business. I have sympathy for this guy, right? Like, what's this? Like, this guy right here, Carlos, he says, what's he going to say? He says, the committee appears to have leaked the account names. Like, what are you supposed to say? If you were texting your buddy, you know, if this was not a work email, you'd say, those rotten pieces of garbage liars. Why? You know, what are they doing? They're like the worst. You would never do business with them. You would never invite them over to a dinner. You would never, never, never go on a vacation with them or anything like that. And there's no recourse at all. They can just do it. And Adam Schiff just gets elected and elected and elected and elected and elected. Nobody cares. So what recourse is there? Carlos is, you know, he's okay. Well, apparently they leaked the list. What can I do? Nothing. You can't do anything, brother. It's the government. It sucks. They're terrible. Gosh. All right. So this continues on. And now they send it to the media too. So they're not just, you know, they're leaking it to the media. Now the media is inquiring about this. So, you know, now poor Carlos is like, what the heck, man? Now the media, we got to deal with BuzzFeed. Now BuzzFeed reporters are asking us questions. God. So it goes on. So there's another response. It looks like this one came from Yoel, former head of trust and safety. He says, okay, listen, November 21st, 2017, Yoel responds. He writes, these are definitely bad accounts, okay? And based on their phone carriers, they have signs of being connected to Russia. And once we've settled on a press strategy, we can and should suspend them all. Okay, this is like the big whopper massive account, like list of accounts, I guess. All 2,700 have to go. So he's, you know, agitated. He says, but they almost all were principally active in German. And while before that, some were active in English around Brexit, rather than related to the U.S. election. And there's no especially clear sign that they're necessarily, he says, and that's in italics, he says there's no especially clear sign that they're necessarily IRA linked. So he knows they're not linked. He knows these are fake, you know, they're just trying to come up with the numbers. He says, I think we need to get at their questions by emphasizing the limited scope of the 2,700 accounts we specifically identified for Congress in the context of IRA accounts involved in the election. So at this point, they don't care at all about, again, Russian interference or meddling. They need a big number. They need a reason for the tech companies to engage with the U.S. government, in this case, the intelligence community, security state, so that this never happens again. Yoel says, we also reported to Congress on thousands more Russia-linked accounts, which we couldn't deterministically say were IRA-linked. And therefore, in the interest of protecting the privacy of users until we're very confident they are IRA-linked bad actors, we didn't disclose all the handles we found as part of our review. Okay, but you guys will. And you'll start removing stuff later, right? This is still pretty early on in the Twitter file timeline. This thing, you know, all of this really ramped up. You know, I think it'd be cool to go back and sort of timeline the whole thing out at some point, but this is old, right? This is like right after the election. And so this is before Jim Baker was over there. This is before, you know, Elvis Chan evidently was, you know, meeting with all of these people. This got dramatically worse, but this is where the dam starts to break, right? This is where they're all starting to, you know, sort of bend on their morals and say, hold on a minute. Yoel says, hold on a minute. Actually, they were bad accounts. They weren't, but now they are bad. And so they're going to just thread the needle. We're going to give them the 2,700 number. That's what they want. He says, we also reported to Congress on thousands more. So basically, I guess anybody who's a Russian citizen. So long, Russia. Like if you have an account, you know, if you're a Russian person in Russia on Twitter, sorry, you're a hacker, you know, hacking America. It doesn't even matter if you spent anything. You're probably on a list somewhere. So it says Russia-linked accounts, which we couldn't deterministically say were IRA-linked, and therefore, in the interest of protecting the users, we didn't disclose the handles yet. Another message says, I'd prefer not to ask the reporters at BuzzFeed for their methodology. Probably somebody was asking, how did they get the list? Does anybody know where they got this list from? Like, what's the source of the list? Because of course, if they're going to ask you to comment on a list, you'd say, well, I don't know what list it is. Where'd the list come from? Was it a spreadsheet you downloaded off the internet somewhere? I mean, what is it? You got it from Congress? Oh, that's funny, because Congress said that they wouldn't be doing that. Who is the person in Congress who gave you the document? Well, I can't unveil my sources. All right, well, so it came from Congress, though? Because, I mean, I can't comment on something that I haven't seen or know what it is. I got it from Congress. It's an official representative. Okay, great. So here's our comment. So the response to this is, I'd prefer not to do that, right? I'd rather not go that route. Don't ask them about their methodology. It's only going to embolden them, and it indirectly undermines credibility and the integrity of our own approach. Saying that we're sort of leaky, and it's undermining the credibility, maybe, that they're working with the government. It's sort of admitting that they're working with the government. Anyways, furthermore, it says they will chart the correspondence in their follow-up, right? They'll put it in their article saying Twitter asked for our methodology, and this calls into the effectiveness, the question of their own tools, right? So he's saying they're going to blame us for asking how they got the data. And then they're going to use that. That's just going to open the can of worms. So don't even comment on this. Agreed, says somebody. Another outlet reporter, I might feel differently, but they have been fairly adversarial over there, and I got you on this one, and I'd rather have as much as light as touch possible with them. All right, so BuzzFeed is beating up on the Twitter executives, and so they're just saying, we're just going to do the bury the head in the sand approach. Don't ask them how they got the list. Keep our conversation limited about what we actually did, and hopefully they'll just all go away. 29 from Taibbi, he writes, now the Senate Intel Committee is asking about what they can do. The BuzzFeed piece comes out, and the Senate asked for a write-up of what happened. Twitter was soon apologizing for the same accounts they'd initially told the Senate were not a problem, all right? So the old reversal comes out. The government knows exactly what they're doing, put some public pressure on them, then a story. So they do the same thing all the time, right? They play both sides. They will play Michael Sussman, right? Was trying to sell a story to the FBI while simultaneously trying to sell a story to the media. Same thing's happening here, right? They are threatening congressional governmental oversight while at the same time leaking stuff to the media so that the media puts pressure on the story, right? They wanted pressure. Sussman was trying to set up pressure from both sides, the federal government and the media. They're doing the same thing. They're just the subject's different. Rather than Michael Sussman was trying to make Donald Trump the subject of government and media pressure. Here, they're just doing it with Twitter. They're just saying, okay, well, we're going to put the pressure on you through the Intelligence Committee. And we're also going to leak this all to the media so they put pressure on you. What happens? I feel bad for these people as a business owner, okay? Just as a business owner, having the government come and put their big, fat, disgusting, stinky belly and boot right on your neck is reprehensible, right? It's not a free country if that happens. So here is this conversation. Twitter soon starts apologizing for the same accounts they said not a big deal in the first place. Here's the series of emails. On Monday, November 27th, 8:57 p.m., these guys are working late at night. They're getting a lot of pressure. He says the Senate Intel Committee is asking for a write-up of what happened with these accounts from our perspective. Okay? So the government leaked to the media, and then once the media published the story, the government demanded answers about the leaked story. You see how rotten this is? They caused it, right? They caused this leak. What happened? They're asking for a write-up. What happened with this account? Carlos says, is it possible to whip something up, to whip something together? Yoel says, yep, we'll work on something now, and we'll share with this group for feedback shortly. Yeah, no problem. We'll get that together. This cycle, says Matt, this process of threatened legislation, scary headlines, wedded to scare headlines pushed by congressional intel sources, headline after headline, right? The media gets the story and puts pressure on them. Twitter then caves to moderation. This cycle continues and asks they would be later formalized into partnerships with the federal law enforcement agencies. Cycle continues. We're going to regulate you out of existence. Do something about this. And if you don't, right, we're going to leak it to the media. The media is going to put pressure on you. We're going to ask you about what you did from the media, and you've got both the government and the media breathing down your neck every step of the way. So Twitter just acquiesces at some point. Here we have on November 21st, a letter comes out from Twitter. It says, "Hi, everyone. Given we've now suspended all accounts, we will take a hit in the press that moves from BuzzFeed to more established publications," which is very insulting to BuzzFeed. They're calling you an unestablished, non-establishment, under-establishment, weakly established publication. Very insulting. Maybe you should become like the New York Times. They say that we'll work to contain it. They don't like this story. So they've given in. They've buckled to pressure. We're going to try to contain it. Now, he writes, relatedly, we can expect more investigations of accounts that are tangentially associated with the IRA handover to the U.S. committees, buoyed by academic brand names. Reporters now know this is a model that works, okay? They say we caved. We negotiated with the terrorists. We buckled. And so that's going to just keep coming. Floodgates are open now. FBI is going to be right in our gullet. It's going to be disgusting. So they write that Twitter soon settled on its future posture. So now that the dams have broken, in public, they say that they remove content, quote, at our sole discretion. Now, privately, they would offboard, quote, anything, quote, identified by the U.S. intelligence community as a state-sponsored entity conducting cyber operations. So they tell America at our sole discretion. Behind the scenes, it's we're working with the U.S. intelligence community and we're going to do whatever they tell us to do. A little bit of a different feel, isn't it? It's not like, your friend comes over and says, "Hey, man, I'd like to, buy you a beer." It's your friend who, is an FBI agent who's there to investigate you and incriminate you, asking to buy you a beer. It's a little bit different, right? Not exactly the same situation. Twitter tells us they're nice, good people. We can trust them. They care about free speech. It's in their mission statement. They have all these public policy perspectives that it's about enabling conversation and diversity and all this crap. Turns out none of that's true. They were doing whatever the federal government wanted and removing and censoring free speech in America. And it's in the emails. Here, let's take a look. The external offboarding policy. This must be a company policy, a procedure, a manual that, spread around all of the tweeters. It says the external offboarding policy, all right, which means this is external, like it's an external policy. So you have internal policies and procedures and external policies and procedures. The internal policies are things that you do in your company and you know about. The external policies are things that other people know about. Your use of Twitter services, they say, is subject to Twitter's ad policies, available at twitter.com/ads-policy. The Twitter rules available at this website and other things available here. If we suspect that an ad is in violation of our rights, agreements, and policies, we may stop the ad from running. In some cases, including but not limited to multiple or severe violations of our policies, or if you do anything by engaging in unlawful activity on our service, as we determine in our sole discretion, not the U.S. government's sole discretion, ours, Twitter's, we will suspend or terminate your account. Now, that's the external offboarding policy. Okay, so this goes out to all of the ad gurus there working at Twitter. They're saying, look, if you have to nuke somebody out of the ads program, here's what you tell them. Now, between you and me, this is really how it works. Okay, this sole discretion thing, like it's nice for them to think that, but here's how it works. Here's how we really make the sausage. Come back here, let me show you. The internal guidance says that any user, quote, identified by the U.S. intelligence community, a little bit different than sole discretion, as a state-sponsored entity conducting cyber operations against targets associated with the U.S. or other elections, or an entity associated with such operations, shall not be allowed to advertise on Twitter. And it's pretty amazing. They started this off with a memo about the U.S. intelligence agencies. It's not even about a threat. Any user identified by them, we're just going to take their word for it. Doesn't even matter, So it's actually not our sole discretion. It's kind of our discretion plus the government's discretion. And if we have a debate about our discretion versus the government's discretion, like if we have an example where they say, can you write us a report about the Russians attacking American elections from your company since you have all the amazing data and access to that? And you say, yeah, we found them. There's like 3 of them. Okay. That's it. And one of them's from RT. They say, we don't like that number. We like the 2,700 number a lot better. Who won that battle? What was the final submission? Is that your final answer, America? Was it the 3 accounts or the 17, under 10,000? Or was it the 2,700? Who won that debate? The government did, because the government always does. Matt says, Twitter let the U.S. intelligence community into its moderation process, and it would not leave. This came out from Colin Crowell. He said this, overall, my sense is that the political terrain has shifted in Washington in the run-up to these hearings. Not looking good. The tech industry is going to get a lot more scrutiny and questioning, and we will not be reverting to the status quo in D.C. soon. It's it. Floodgates are open. Pandora's box has burst. Nothing else is coming out. And we saw where this led. We covered all of the other preceding Twitter files, 1 through 10, preceding today's. Matt Taibbi finishes up over on Twitter at @mtaibbi. He says, for more on the Twitter files, be sure to follow all of these people. And we've covered all of them. If you've missed any of the Twitter files and want to learn more about this, then, of course, check out the Twitter files list, which is on YouTube. It is a playlist that you can go and watch all of them. But, another trip down memory lane of the disgusting collusion between big tech and the U.S. government. And on this one, I have some sympathy for Twitter. I see people in this business who are trying to work with the government, and the government wants answers that they can't give. I think that eventually they talk themselves into breaking all of their policies, violating all of their mission principles, but they acquiesced. The government put their boot on their neck, and all of them started to roll over. And yeah, once the status quo changed, the status quo changed, and there's nothing else they can do. And so I wonder what happened with this Carlos fella. There's really nothing in here from him other than just that one email. Just felt like he was totally deflated. He's just like, well, they're leaking everything, so all my work is just done. What a mess. You comply with the government, or else they will make it hurt. They will threaten your business. They will ask the media to threaten your business. They will take away your primary products, all because they didn't like the answer. They want to remove their arch enemy. And they did. They did everything they possibly could to make that happen. Twitter changed their answers. And as we've talked about on this show, my friends, there's a concept called state action, when the government exercises so much control over a private entity. That private entity is no longer a private entity. It's an extension of the government. It becomes a state actor at that moment in time. And Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of free speech, right? It's the free speech provision of the First Amendment. It's extremely important here. And this is Pencil Neck Adam Schiff in Congress, literally threatening legislation, okay? Threatening to eliminate a business because they didn't like the report that they generated. It wasn't useful for them. So they got the report anyways. They got a big list of names that wasn't even relevant. They published it in the media, and then Twitter acquiesced. It's a really shameful thing. And I'm extremely excited to continue to cover these and learn more about them, because Matt Taibbi and others, all of the people that he referenced down below, will continue to reveal these stories. And of course, we will continue to cover them as well. And I hope you join us as we do. And I hope you subscribe wherever it is you're watching these. Don't forget to hit that like button, and we'll look forward to seeing you, my friends, on the next one. But that is it for us on the day. A little bit of a shorter show. I wanted to take a quick look at what was going on with the House. Did they emerge? Are they done? The House Speaker? They reconvene for a 7th ballot tomorrow at 8. Oh, they reconvene at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that's in about 45 minutes. All right, so we're not going to see that. They're back at 8 p.m. Eastern, so that's in about 40 minutes or so. All right, so we'll see. I don't know if anybody's optimistic about that, but yeah, so we'll see if they get anything done. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say. And we're going to check in with the chat and see what the chat has going on. I see Dixie Dogs is in the house playing hookies. Says shorter shows, playing hooky says shorter shows on YouTube, extras over on locals. That is true. We do have our after party over there at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And all right. And so we'll check in with the chat. Let's see what's going on over on Twitter. See if we have any Twitter viewers over there before we jump off to our after party over on locals. We had a couple Twitter comments, and of course, we'll have some locals comments, and we'll get to some of those. Oh, we have a belly button. Oh, man, that's not good. All right, so we'll, yeah, gosh, that's an awful one. But okay, so that one's over on our Twitter profile. That came in from Peace to Your Hearts. We have a couple others that have come in. Let's see here. This one is from MAGA Peas and Butter. MAGA Peas and Butter says, Peas joined you on Twitter today. A different experience for sure. Yeah, it's not really ideal to watch the activity on Twitter. We've got a whopping 9 viewers over there, as you can see. It's about to get out of control. 10 viewers. Holy crap. Everybody stand by. 10 viewers over there on Twitter. Look at this. You can see it right there. Things are getting wild. Keep it calm over there, everybody. Keep it calm. I don't want things to get out of control. Things might get wild. Oh my gosh, we're up to 12. It's going to be madness. All right, so let's see some of these other comments. We had Tartan Tragic is in the house. He says, your first mistake was thinking that I'm one of your sheep, with a picture of a beautiful wolf. Very angry. Getting after them. We had this one from Call to Ceasefire says, thank you. Lets me keep up while working. Don't have time to read through them all myself. Of course. Happy to share them with you. And thank you for being here and joining us as we go through them. Deplorable says, I think more appropriate name for the FBI censorship would be a-hole of government censorship. And Free Ostrich says the epicenter of communism in the USA. And we like to jump over to Twitter for a little bit just to sort of support Elon and his efforts and support our free speech platforms anytime that we can. And so we're also jumping over to Rumble to say hello to our Rumble friends over there. We've got Soul Vibe Warrior, Wiley E. Coyotes in the house. Dog Digger says double digits. It's out of control over there. Yeah, Twitter's just out of control. It's going to be absolute madness. I mean, we're down now. We're down to 11. Somebody left. They showed up to the party. They're like, nah, not good. Not good for me. Not good for us over there. We got Wiley E. Coyote. We have Mac 450. We have Toasty Seats is in the house. Orin Hill, and many others. Let's see what our locals community is chatting about over there, because we have an amazing community and we have some amazing stories over there that we like to dig into on our locals community. So we'll pull this up and say hello to our friends and our comments over here. We got Dana in the house. We got Andy Pease over there. He says locals for the win, which is absolutely true. What's up, Dana? We got Pineapple Pizza, GDL MAL. We have Vientikis. He says, Counselor, I respectfully request you change belly button to smelly navel lint. Well, that's what, if you look on the Twitter account, there was a dude sniffing his belly lint, which was just a little bit much for us. We also had some comments in here from Aggie Martin. Here, okay, this is great. Let's take a look at this. Here's a Google spreadsheet with all the results in order of voting. For all the votes so far, I will keep it updated as needed. Man, all right, so Aggie Martin on our locals has been MVP on, wow, holy moly. All right, this is detailed. This is really detailed. Look at this. All right. So we'll post this link over on locals, but let's zoom in on this because you can see the history of the votes. So this is very interesting. All right, so you can see if anybody flips, right? So these are all the same. Is anybody flipping on these 6? If you look at these 2 columns, I don't think anybody's flipping, right? That's the problem. There's no changes here. Jeffries, McCarthy. Yeah, they all look. I thought there was a flip in between. Was it on one that we watched this morning? I thought there was a flip, but wow, this is great. I thought maybe I saw one, but no. This is everybody. All right. Yeah, so that's all 6 votes. We're coming back for a 7th one. Vote 6. This was assembled by Aggie over on our locals channel. This is awesome. You've got all of the different reps and you've got all their districts. Man, super cool. All right. So we'll post that over there on locals. Thank you, Aggie, for sharing that one. Very useful. Yeah, we were having questions about that today. We were watching it this morning, and we had some questions about what's up, what was up with it. James says, here's some food for thought. If the U.S. government intentionally colluded with Twitter and like-minded social corporate news media, as well as the Democratic Party, to violate the First Amendment, what actions against the government and collaborators should be taken? Well, look, we referenced a couple criminal statutes here. Conspiracy against rights is one of them. I think that's, I think we've referenced that one. Let me see if I can just grab it real quick. I think it's 18 U.S. 41, 18 U.S. Code 241. Here it is. This is something that we talked about, right? An attorney general, something like this. You'd have to have a federal prosecutor bring it under this, or, if the Republicans form a stupid fake select committee or something, they could make recommendation. They could do everything the Democrats are doing, okay, against the FBI. Just do it against the FBI. Do it against the people who are no longer working at the FBI, right? Baker's not even there anymore. Tim Tebow's not even there anymore. Is that the guy's name? Tebow's the name. I don't know what his first name is. If 2 or more persons are intimidating, oppressing, threatening, conspiring to intimidate any person in their free exercise or the enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him by the Constitution or the laws, that person is in violation of the law. In prison not more than 10 years. All right. So there are criminal statutes all over the place that you could use to prosecute people. Now, they would turn around and they would say, no, my qualified immunity and I'm free and I can do all this stuff. But that's not the point, right? The point is, like, there needs to be some recourse of some variety, and there really hasn't been any. In fact, most of the Republicans aren't even talking about it. I think probably because many of the Republicans are in on it. To be perfectly honest. I think there's probably a big whole bunch of them that are also interested in not having Trump or Trump-like people part of the national conversation. And they're very thrilled to, they were very thrilled to have Twitter, the FBI, all those people protect the conversation against any outsiders. It's probably why they're not, banging the table on it like the rest of us. They benefited from it. That's the problem. All right, so that's from James. We saw this one from Sergeant Bob. He says, these tech people are absolute scum. Well, not all of them, Sergeant Bob, not all of them, but some of them for sure. They are, he says, they're lower than the common offenders. Even they have screws loose in their head. But social media people are supposedly intelligent, and they knew what they were doing was wrong and immoral, a real threat to democracy. Yeah, that's sort of like a crime called, this is like a distinction, Sergeant Bob, between crimes of moral turpitude is what we call them here in Arizona. And, these are sort of intentionally malicious crimes, right? Like anybody can get a DUI. You're like, I'm fine. I'm sober. Like I'm literally perfectly fine. I can see, I could do cartwheels right now. You get in your car. You're not. You're over the legal limit, which is basically nothing. Okay. Don't drink and drive, but it is basically nothing. Okay. So that person, it's like a mistake, right? I honestly, I could have done cartwheels. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, like Rob, I was as sober as I've ever been. I'm like, okay, I know you were, but that's not how the body works. Or, the body works this way, but that's not how the tests work. Okay. And how the law works, unfortunately. So that's a mistake. That's different than somebody who is like actively, intentionally trying to go rob somebody. Like we're going to plan a robbery. We're going to jump that dude when he comes out of that car and we're going to take that thing, right? That's like actively malicious and intentionally wrong. You know it, you think about it, you're wrong. You say, I'm going to do it anyways. That's sort of a crime of moral turpitude. It's this idea that you're trying to do something dishonest and nefarious. versus you made a mistake. So, and those are looked down upon, a lot more disfavorably because it involves that mental component. And I think that's what Sergeant Bob is talking about. Specifically, they knew what they were doing and they did it anyways, and they kept doing it. Sergeant Bob says, as I recall, Senator Warner from Virginia was married to Hanoi Jane. Do I need to say more? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know on that one. I don't know on that one. So somebody's going to have to fact check him on that one. Sergeant Bob says, I cannot get over the ones who said that Trump was divisive. The rotten Congress and social media were on this endless tirade. What was the president to do? Just take it? No, he's a fighter and he fought. So is that divisive? The corrupt media agencies and the media were the divisive parties. Yeah, there certainly was a lot of that going on. And they knew what they were doing. They had a plan. They were trying to concoct a narrative. And they did. And it worked. This one came in from Andy P. He posted this one on Twitter, and he shared this. Kevin McCarthy at the World Economic Forum. Is that true? Is that right? If you go to that website, looks right. Looks true. Looks like it's just a perfect screenshot. World Economic Forum people/Kevin McCarthy. Now, does that mean that he did something for them, or do they just have like profiles of people on their website? But of course, they've got everybody buttoned down, the whole stinking country. All right, my friends. Now, that is some of what came in from locals, but we're going to hop off and spend the rest of our time over on locals, and we'll have some fun chatting about more of this stuff. And so if you want to come and join us, head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we're going to hang out for a little bit more time. But if not, my friends, I want to thank you for being a part of the show. Of course, don't forget to come out and join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And also, my friends, don't forget to check out forpatriots.com. You can see here, there is a beautiful image of yours truly. All right. This is me standing in front of everything that you need to survive. You see forpatriots.com, freeze-dried pineapples, strawberries. You've got all sorts of sweet and savory recipes, free shipping. You get 10% off anything in the store. Promo code Robert at forpatriots.com. Okay. Now this meme was created by our friend at Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter. Shout out to Paul Mino for this beautiful meme. It's incredible food. Unfortunately, I cannot cook anything, which is why I need freeze-dried food. I need storage food. I need survival food. I need calories. I need to survive, and so do you and your family and your loved ones. And that's why you should go to forpatriots.com and use code Robert to get 10% off anything in the store. And you too can look like this in front of your survival food. And a bonus is you will survive. I will mention this. The hat and the chef's outfit are not included in your order at forpatriots.com, but certainly head on over there and check them out because they are an amazing company. And of course, our law firm, the R&R Law Group, located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We help good people charged with crimes from all over the state of Arizona, from all over the world. We've represented people from all over the world. And they come here, visit the Grand Canyon. It's a lot of snowbirds here, a lot of holiday crimes. Okay, our office has been very busy because the cops are out like wild men, just rounding everybody up over the holidays. They're just like, oh, yeah, you're a criminal, aren't you? You're like, no, I'm a single mom. I have never done anything wrong in my life. They're like, that's too bad. You're going to jail. So we try to help people like that get through these situations, get things back on track, put it behind them with as minimal damage as possible at our amazing law firm, 480-787-0394. We help people from all over Arizona, all over the world. rrlawaz.com if you want to check that out as well. We strive to deliver safety, clarity, and hope to good people charged with crimes. And your referrals keep us very busy. Thank you for sending them our way so we have the opportunity to help. I want to thank all the mods who modded down the fort for us. Big shout outs go to VNT Kiss Prime, K Bean, who we miss, Just Cause, Lean. Shout out to Lean. Lean, I see you over there. Looking fabulous today, Lean. Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, and Geo swings by from time to time. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We're going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I hope to see you there. But if we don't, then I'll see you back here tomorrow, I hope. Because we got to come back here and do it all again. The news will be wild, I'm sure, as it always is. We'll see if we have a new Speaker of the House. We'll see what the heck is going on, but we'll have a lot to talk about. And I hope to see you right back here. So don't forget to subscribe so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Locals, I'll see you in 30 seconds. All of you other friends of mine on YouTube, on Twitter, on Rumble, much love. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye, everybody.